"Why are you gentle?" asked the alien war child. The queen could answer. Smoke rose from ruined cities far beyond the human settlement, and the distant echoes of conflict occasionally shook the ground. Despite this, the human colony thrived quietly in the plains, hidden under the shadows of mountains that had survived the endless battles. The colony was small, yet organized, built on the idea that humans could flourish even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. Queen Alara walked through the central plaza, her long cloak brushing against the smooth stone pathways. Her presence commanded attention, not through fear or force, but through quiet confidence. The settlers, men, women, and children, looked up at her with respect and hope. She had become a symbol of endurance, a living example that humans could survive, rebuild, and even thrive in the face of impossible odds. Today was different. The air was thick with tension because Xiran scouts had been seen circling the colony's borders. The Xirans were a war-driven alien species, large and sharp-eyed, with a society that rewarded aggression and punished kindness. To them, humans seemed fragile, unprepared, and oddly gentle. Alara had been warned of their approach, yet she did not show fear. She gathered a small delegation of humans to meet the Xirans at the outskirts of the colony. Each step she took was deliberate, showing that she was in control, even though the alien forces vastly outnumbered them. When the humans reached the meeting point, the Xirans were already there. Their armor reflected the red light of Urendor's twin suns, and their movements were precise and intimidating. Among them, a young Xiran child, no older than 10, stood slightly apart from the others. He had sharp features, but his eyes betrayed confusion and curiosity. This child had been raised in war, trained to follow orders without question, yet something about the humans disturbed him. Queen Alara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We come in peace. We wish to discuss the possibility of coexistence. Your attacks have caused great harm, but we believe that conflict is not the only way forward." A Xiran commander snarled, his voice deep and harsh. "Peace is a weakness. Strength is survival. You will submit or perish." Alara met his gaze without flinching. She knew that a direct show of strength could provoke them, but a display of confidence combined with restraint might show them another way. "Strength without wisdom is destruction," she said. "We offer a chance to protect your people and ours without more bloodshed." The young Xiran child, Kale, tilted his head. He had never seen an alien act like this. Every adult in his life had spoken of humans as fragile and weak, unworthy of their time. Yet here was this small group, standing calmly in the presence of warriors who could easily crush them. They did not beg. They did not tremble. They simply spoke as if they were equal, not fearful. After tense minutes of negotiation, the meeting ended with no real agreement, but also no immediate attack. The Xirans withdrew slightly, leaving the humans to return to the colony. The child, Kale, lingered, his eyes fixed on Queen Alara. That night, the colony was quiet. Fires burned in hearths, and humans went about their routines as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Yet Kale could not stop thinking about the woman who had faced his people without fear. He moved silently, observing from a distance, studying her as she walked among her people, listening to their concerns, offering comfort and giving direction. Finally, curiosity overcame his fear. Kale approached her cautiously, careful not to alarm anyone. "Why are you gentle?" he asked in a voice that was a mixture of awe and confusion. Alara turned to him, startled. The question struck deeper than any weapon could. She looked into the eyes of the child and saw a lifetime of fear, anger, and training built around destruction. How could she explain something so deeply human, something she often understood only instinctively? I don't know if I have a simple answer," she said softly. "Gentleness is not weakness, it is choice. It is strength guided by care." Kale frowned, trying to understand. "In my world, strength is power. Power is survival. Kindness is dangerous. How can you survive by being gentle?" Alara thought for a moment. "Survival is not the same as victory. Humans survive because we care for one another. Because we protect each other, we learn, we adapt, and we do not let hate control us. Strength without care destroys everything, including ourselves. Gentleness is strength measured, not wasted." Kale was silent. He had been raised to follow orders, to obey without question, to strike first and think later. Yet, in this human colony, he saw something unfamiliar: confidence that did not demand dominance, authority that did not rely on fear, and courage that did not require violence. The next day, Kale found himself wandering closer to the colony, hidden behind the hills, watching the humans at work. They moved in harmony, repairing buildings, tending to children, and sharing resources. They spoke calmly even when disagreements arose. No one raised a weapon over small disputes. Kale felt a strange pull in his chest, an emotion he did not recognize, something like admiration mixed with confusion. Alara noticed him, though she did not approach immediately. She could sense his presence and his unease. Instead, she continued her work, allowing him to observe. In time, he began to understand that humans were strong in ways he had never imagined. Not in raw power, but in patience, resilience, and the courage to protect others even when it might cost them dearly. Kale's curiosity grew each day. He began sneaking closer, learning their routines, and even witnessing moments of quiet bravery. Once, a small fire broke out in the settlement, threatening the homes of several families. Humans worked together, putting themselves at risk to save others, even while Ziran scouts watched from a distance. Kale had never seen anything like it. In his world, saving another was considered weakness. Here, it was a measure of strength. One evening, he finally approached Alara again, braver this time. "I saw what you did," he said. "You saved them without hurting anyone. Why?" Alara smiled faintly, her eyes tired but warm. "Because lives are precious. Because protecting them is more important than destroying enemies. Violence is easy, choosing to protect instead is hard. That is the strength humans rely on." Kale nodded slowly, though he did not fully understand. His life had been filled with orders and rules. Fight, survive, conquer. Now he realized that there were other rules, rules that humans seemed to live by instinctively. And these rules, though different, were powerful. The days passed, and Kale continued to watch, learning more about humans and about Alara. She never raised her voice, even when faced with anger and threats. She never demanded loyalty through fear, only respect through action. Kale began to feel a strange shift inside him. The anger and confusion that had always guided his actions were slowly replaced by curiosity and something else: hope. One afternoon, Alara invited Kale to sit with her in the settlement's garden. She did not force him to speak or explain. She simply let him sit beside her and watch as humans worked, laughed, and cared for one another. Kale found comfort in the quiet, a new feeling he could not name. "Do you understand now?" Alara asked softly, breaking the silence. Kale shook his head. "Not yet, but I want to." Alara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "That is enough for now. Understanding comes slowly. Humans live by example, not by force. Watch, learn, and see for yourself." Kale stayed, silently observing, as the sun dipped below the mountains, casting long shadows over the settlement. For the first time in his young life, he felt that there could be a world where strength was not measured by power alone, and where even a child trained for war could choose a different path. And for Queen Alara, the question lingered in her mind as well. Why was she gentle? She did not have a complete answer, not yet. Perhaps she never would. But she knew one thing for certain: gentleness, when combined with courage and wisdom, was a force capable of inspiring even the most hardened hearts, even those of a child born into war. That night, Kale returned to his Ziran camp, but he was changed. The words and actions of humans echoed in his mind. He could not unsee what he had witnessed, and he could not forget the calm authority of Queen Alara. Somewhere deep inside, a seed had been planted, one that might one day grow into something remarkable. For now, he would watch, he would learn, and he would wonder. And in that wondering, the first cracks in his understanding of strength and survival began to appear. The war-torn world of Urindor had just gained an unexpected student, and the gentle example of humanity had found its first pupil in the heart of an alien war child. The days on Urindor passed quietly, but for Kale, each moment felt charged with a new, unfamiliar curiosity. He could not stop thinking about the humans and especially Queen Alara. The way she moved among her people, her calm voice and her quiet courage, all of it seemed impossible to him. In his world, strength was shown through fear, violence, and domination. Yet here he saw strength born from patience, from understanding, and from care. Kale found himself returning to the human settlement every day. He did not announce his presence, he merely observed. He watched humans teach their children, sharing knowledge patiently. He watched them repair homes and tools, sometimes laughing at their mistakes, sometimes helping one another quietly. And most of all, he watched how they treated each other during conflict. Arguments were settled not with weapons, but with words and compromise. One morning, Alara noticed him again. She had expected him to disappear after their first encounters, but he had returned, quietly hiding behind the trees at the edge of the garden. She did not scold him, nor did she chase him away. Instead, she approached slowly, her hands open and her eyes calm. "You are learning quickly," she said softly, "or at least watching," Kale started. I want to learn," he admitted, his voice hesitant, "but I do not understand your ways." "How can humans be so strong and yet so gentle?" Alara looked at him and smiled faintly. "Gentleness is not separate from strength, Kale. It is strength guided by choice, to protect, to care, to forgive when it is hardest. That is the courage humans carry." Kale frowned. His mind, trained for war, struggled with the idea. "In my world, forgiveness is weakness. Survival means crushing anyone who stands in your way. How can your way survive?" Alara led him to a small courtyard where humans were repairing a damaged building. "Watch," she said simply. "See how they work together. No one is forced. They choose to help because they value each other. That is why humans survive, not by crushing others, but by lifting each other up." Kale watched. The humans carried heavy beams, passed tools without argument, and spoke encouraging words. One man fell while lifting a beam, but others immediately rushed to help him, ensuring he was safe. There was no shouting, no punishment, just cooperation and care. Kale had never seen anything like it. "Why do they help each other?" he asked, unable to hide his astonishment. "Because each life matters," Alara said. "Every person here is valuable, not because of what they can do for you, but because of who they are. We protect what is precious. That is the human way." Kale remained silent, his mind spinning. In his world, only power mattered, weakness was punished, kindness was exploited. But here he saw that kindness was not weakness, it was strategy, courage, and strength all at once. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A small group of Ziran scouts had returned to observe the colony, and one of them, larger, older, and more experienced, attempted to threaten the humans openly. The humans did not flee. They did not attack. Instead, Alara stepped forward, her voice calm and commanding. "Your presence here is noted," she said. "We do not wish for conflict, but we will protect our people. Leave and no harm will come to you. Stay and you risk your own lives." The Ziran commander snarled, showing his sharp teeth. "Humans are weak, you cannot stop us." Alara's eyes narrowed slightly, but she remained composed. "Strength without thought is destruction. Think carefully before you act." Kale's heart raced as he watched the exchange. He expected the humans to cower or to strike back, but they did neither. Their calm confidence unsettled him. He realized that humans did not need to show power in the same way Zirans did. They had a different kind of power, one that made him question everything he had been taught. That evening, Kale approached Alara again. "How can you be so calm?" he asked. "They outnumber you. They could destroy you easily." Alara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the fading light of the twin suns. "Because I do not fear them. I fear what losing our humanity would do to us. Violence may be easy, Kale, but protecting life, showing mercy, and guiding others towards safety, those are harder. And harder things matter more." Kale considered her words. They were strange, but not meaningless. He had spent his life following orders without question, believing that obedience and aggression were the only paths to survival. Yet watching humans, he began to understand that courage had many forms. Over the next few days, Kale learned more than he could have imagined. He watched humans teach each other skills, heal the wounded, and even negotiate with Zirans in small ways to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. One human medic saved a wounded Ziran scout despite the danger it posed to herself. Kale could not understand why she risked her life for someone trained to kill her. "Why did she help him?" Kale asked Alara, his voice low with disbelief. "Because every life matters," Alara said, "even those who seem like enemies. Humans do not live to destroy, we live to create, to protect, and to build. Sometimes that means helping those who may never thank us. That is what makes us strong." Kale nodded slowly, though the words still did not fully sink in. He wanted to understand, but the lessons were not simple. They were not just rules to memorize, they were ways of living, choices to make every day. One night, a storm struck the settlement. Strong winds toppled tents and tore through buildings. The humans worked together tirelessly, rescuing children, securing supplies, and protecting one another from the relentless rain. Kale watched from the edge of the settlement, shivering but captivated. Even in chaos, humans did not panic. They did not abandon each other. They faced danger with courage and care. Alara noticed him again and beckoned him closer. "Come here," she said. Kale hesitated but obeyed. He stood beside her as the wind howled around them. "Why do they follow you?" he asked. "Not because I command them," she said. "Because they trust that I will protect them, that I value their lives, and that I will not betray them. Leadership is not about fear, Kale. It is about responsibility." Kale thought of his own commanders, who ruled by fear and punishment. He remembered the harsh training, the constant drills, the lessons that only survival mattered. And he realized that humans had a different kind of power, one that inspired loyalty without fear, courage without orders, and cooperation without threat. Days turned into weeks. Kale continued to observe, but now he also began to participate quietly. He helped carry supplies, watched humans carefully, and even attempted to learn their words and gestures. He made mistakes, and humans corrected him gently, without anger. For the first time in his life, Kale felt accepted without having to fight or dominate. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the mountains, Kale and Alara walked together along the edge of the settlement. The wind carried the scent of rain-soaked earth, and the distant cries of Ziran scouts reminded them both that danger was never far away. "You are learning quickly," Alara said, "but there is still much to understand. Being gentle is not just about not fighting. It is about seeing the value in life, choosing to protect rather than destroy, and having the courage to act even when it is difficult." Kale nodded. "I think I understand a little," he admitted. "But it is hard. My world, my people, they do not understand this." Alara stopped and looked at him. "Then you must decide, Kale. You have seen our way. You have seen the power in gentleness. You must choose whether to follow it, even if it goes against everything you have been taught." Kale felt a shiver run down his spine. He realized that this choice would define him, perhaps more than anything else in his life. He had been raised for war, trained to obey, to strike, and to survive. But now he glimpsed a different path, a path where strength and gentleness were not opposites but companions. That night, Kale lay in the hills outside the settlement, staring at the stars above Urindor. He thought about the humans he had watched, the courage they had shown, and the kindness they had offered even in the face of danger. And he thought of Queen Alara, who had never struck fear into anyone but had commanded respect through her wisdom and heart. For the first time, Kale questioned his entire life. He wondered if survival alone was enough, if power without purpose meant anything. And deep inside, he felt a spark of something new, something fragile yet strong, a desire to learn, to change, and to see if he could live by the human way. He did not yet have the answers. He did not yet understand the full meaning of gentleness or courage. But he knew one thing. Humans were different, and in that difference, there was a strength that even a war-trained child like him could not ignore. And so Kale began to learn, not through orders, not through punishment, not through fear, but through observation, choice, and the quiet, unwavering example of humanity. The following weeks on Urindor were tense, yet strangely calm. Kale continued to observe the humans, learning from their daily routines, their small acts of kindness, and their quiet courage. But the calm was fragile. Word had come from the Ziran High Command that scouts had discovered the human colony's location. Orders were sent to crush the settlement and capture any survivors. Kale knew that soon he would face a choice that would define his life. Alara had sensed the change before Kale even spoke of it. She had always been careful to balance caution with trust, and now she knew that the young Ziran's loyalty might be tested. She approached him as he stood near the edge of the settlement, watching the horizon with a mixture of fear and determination. "Kale," she said softly, "what you have learned is only the beginning. Soon your understanding will be tested. You must decide who you are and what kind of strength you will follow." Kale looked at her, his eyes wide. I don't know if I can go against them," he admitted. "If I do, they will punish me. They will call me a traitor. But if I obey, I will hurt these people, your people. I do not know what to do." Alara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Then remember this, courage is not just about following orders. True courage is choosing to do what is right, even when it is hard. And sometimes, the right choice is the one no one else expects." That evening, the Ziran forces launched a small raid to test the humans' defenses. Kale watched as soldiers stormed the outskirts of the settlement, weapons ready, faces twisted with aggression. In the chaos, Kale felt an unfamiliar pull in his chest, something like doubt mixed with fear. He had been trained to fight, to strike first, to obey without hesitation. But as he watched the humans move, coordinate, and protect each other without killing anyone, he hesitated. Alara, standing at the center of the human defense, gave calm instructions, guiding people to safety and organizing barriers to prevent harm. She moved with quiet authority, her presence inspiring confidence rather than fear. Kale saw that humans were not weak. They were organized, resilient, and determined to protect life at all costs. Suddenly, a group of Ziran soldiers broke through the defenses, aiming directly at a small team of human scouts. Kale's heart pounded. He could obey his commanders and attack, ensuring the humans would fall, or he could act differently, following the example of the humans he had been watching. His training clashed with his observations, and he froze for a moment. In that pause, he realized something profound. The humans were not helpless, and their strength did not come from weapons alone. Their courage came from their choices, their unity, and their willingness to protect life even when it was dangerous. Kale made his decision. He moved swiftly, intercepting the Ziran soldiers and creating a distraction that allowed the humans to escape. He did not fight to kill. He fought to protect. His actions confused the Ziran soldiers, who had never seen one of their own betray orders in such a way. Alara saw Kale's intervention and did not scold him. Instead, she nodded slightly, understanding that he had made a choice that required courage far greater than mere obedience. "Well done, Kale," she said quietly. The humans managed to retreat to a safer part of the settlement. The small skirmish ended without casualties on the human side, and even some of the Ziran soldiers hesitated to pursue further. Kale stood among the humans, panting, his mind racing. He had chosen a different kind of strength, one he had never experienced before. After the battle, Kale wandered to the outskirts of the settlement, trying to understand his feelings. He was proud, yet anxious. He had disobeyed his commanders. They would not forgive him. And yet he had protected people who had shown him kindness and taught him lessons no Ziran instructor ever could. Alara approached him again, her eyes calm and gentle. "You are learning, Kale," she said. "This is the path of true courage. It is not always easy. It is not always clear, but it is always worth choosing." Kale shook his head. I do not know if I can stay here. My people will hunt me. They will call me weak and a traitor, but if I return, I will hurt them. I cannot do that." Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then you must decide where your loyalty lies. Strength is not measured by fear or obedience. It is measured by the choices you make, the lives you protect, and the values you uphold. You have seen the human way. Now you must choose if you will follow it." Kale spent the night alone, thinking. He thought of the humans, of their courage and their care for one another. He thought of Alara, who had never raised a hand in anger yet commanded respect through her actions. And he thought of the Zirans, his own people, who valued only obedience and domination. When dawn broke over Urindor, Kale made his choice. He returned to the settlement, approaching Alara and the humans he had come to admire. "I want to stay," he said. "I do not want to hurt anyone anymore. I want to learn to protect, not destroy." Alara smiled, a warmth in her eyes that Kale had never seen before. "Then welcome, Kale. You have chosen the path of courage, and that is the first step toward true strength." The following days were filled with training, not in weapons, but in understanding, cooperation, and strategy. Kale learned how humans defended themselves without relying on brute force. He learned how to plan, observe, and act to protect others. And most importantly, he learned how to make choices guided by care rather than fear. One afternoon, the Ziran High Command arrived with reinforcements, determined to crush the colony and punish the human queen for daring to resist. Kale watched as they approached, his chest tight with fear. The humans gathered, preparing for defense, but their eyes were calm, not filled with panic. Alara stood at the front, her posture steady. "We will not fight to destroy," she said. "We will defend to protect. Our strength is not in killing, but in preserving life and hope. We will act with courage, and we will act with care." Kale felt a surge of pride. He had chosen this path, and now he would fight alongside the humans he had come to respect. He did not feel the thrill of violence or the rush of dominance. He felt something stronger, the resolve to protect, to endure, and to show that courage could take many forms. When the Zirans attacked, the humans did not respond with indiscriminate violence. They used clever traps, shields, and coordinated movements to avoid casualties while keeping the enemy at bay. Kale acted with them, guiding Ziran soldiers away from the human defenders without harming them unnecessarily. The battle was tense, and Kale's heart pounded with every movement. He felt the eyes of his former commanders on him, and he knew they would call him weak, foolish, and traitorous. But in the midst of the fight, he realized something vital. True strength was not in obeying orders blindly. It was in making choices that protected life, nurtured hope, and honored the values he had come to believe in. At the end of the day, the humans stood victorious, not because they had killed more enemies, but because they had defended themselves without losing their humanity. Kale looked around at the settlement, at the exhausted but smiling faces of the humans, and at Queen Alara, who had never wavered. He felt a deep sense of belonging, something he had never experienced with the Zirans. That night, as the stars shimmered above Urindor, Kale approached Alara once more. "I understand now," he said quietly. "Strength is not just power, it is the courage to do what is right, even when it is hard. It is the choice to protect, not destroy. And gentleness is part of that strength." Alara smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have learned well, Kale. Actions speak louder than words. You have chosen the human way, and in doing so you have found a strength greater than anything you could have imagined." Kale looked at her, a sense of peace filling him. For the first time, he felt that he had a purpose, a path, and a family. The humans had shown him that courage could take many forms, and that gentleness, far from being weakness, was a force that could change even the hardest hearts. And for Queen Alara, watching the young Ziran grow and learn, there was hope. Hope that even in a galaxy torn by war and fear, humans could inspire change, show the power of kindness, and teach that true strength comes from the heart. The war-torn world of Urindor had begun to change, not through conquest but through example. And Kale, once a child of war, had become a student of humanity, learning lessons that would shape his life forever. The morning sun rose over Urindor, spilling gold across the human settlement. The battle from the previous days had ended, leaving both humans and the few surviving Zirans weary but unbroken. Kale walked among the humans, observing how they moved with calm determination. Every damaged building was being repaired. Every wounded person was being cared for. Even the smallest task was approached with patience, respect, and care. Kale felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never experienced anything like it with the Zirans. There, life was measured by strength and obedience. Here, life was measured by courage, choice, and kindness. The contrast was so sharp that it made his heart ache, but it also made him feel alive in a way he had never known. Queen Alara stood at the center of the settlement, speaking quietly to a group of humans who were organizing the rebuilding efforts. Kale watched her, noticing the same calm strength that had drawn him here weeks ago. She did not command with fear. She did not demand obedience. She inspired action by showing care, responsibility, and wisdom. Kale approached her. "I want to help," he said. "I want to do more than watch. I want to protect and rebuild with you." Alara turned and smiled. "Then come, Kale. There is much to do, and your courage is needed. Strength is not just in fighting. It is in building, protecting, and guiding others. That is the path you have chosen, and it is a worthy one." For the next few weeks, Kale immersed himself in the life of the settlement. He helped repair homes, carry supplies, and organize resources. He taught humans and aliens alike how to defend themselves without relying solely on violence. He learned to plan, observe, and act in ways that preserved life. Every day, he felt the lessons of humanity taking root in him, shaping him into something stronger than he had ever imagined. One day, a group of young Ziran scouts approached the settlement cautiously. Kale recognized them immediately. They had been sent to check on him to ensure he had not betrayed their orders. His heart pounded. He could still obey them, return to his old life, and avoid further conflict. But as he looked at the humans, their calm eyes and steady movements, he realized he could never go back. He had chosen a different path, one that required courage, responsibility, and care. Kale stepped forward to meet the Ziran scouts. He spoke clearly and firmly. "I am not your enemy. I will not harm you, but I will not return to a life of cruelty and obedience either. You must choose your own path as I have chosen mine." The scouts hesitated. They had been trained to expect aggression, betrayal, or weakness. What they saw instead was clarity, confidence, and courage. Slowly, they backed away, understanding that Kale was no longer the same child they had known. He had become a bridge between two worlds, a living example that change was possible even for those raised in war. Meanwhile, life in the settlement continued. Children laughed as they helped rebuild, and families worked side by side to repair homes and gardens. Humans shared food, tools, and knowledge freely, creating a sense of community that Kale had never experienced. Every act of care, no matter how small, seemed to strengthen the bonds between them and to reinforce the lessons he had been learning. One evening, as Kale walked through the settlement, he saw a young human girl struggling to carry a heavy bundle of firewood. Without hesitation, he ran to help her, lifting the bundle with ease and setting it down gently. She looked up at him and smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you," she said. Kale felt something warm and unfamiliar in his chest. He realized that helping someone, protecting them, and showing care was not weakness. It was strength, a strength that demanded courage, empathy, and wisdom. It was a lesson he had learned from observing humans, from seeing Queen Alara's example, and from making the choice to follow a different path. As night fell, Kale joined Alara near the garden, watching the stars emerge above Urindor. "Do you remember when you first asked me why I am gentle?" Alara said softly. Kale nodded. "I do. I wondered for a long time. I think I understand now, but I am still learning." Alara smiled. "Gentleness is not something you understand in words alone. It is something you live, something you show through actions. You have seen it, practiced it, and even taught it in your own way. That is enough." Kale looked at her, a sense of awe and respect filling him. "I see it now," he said. "It is not weakness. It is strength guided by choice. It is courage, care, and responsibility all at once." Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Exactly, Kale. You have grown beyond what your world taught you. You have chosen a path that is difficult but meaningful. You are not just a survivor. You are a protector, a builder, and an example of what humans can inspire in others." In the weeks that followed, Kale became an integral part of the settlement. He helped train humans and alien allies in tactics that emphasized protection rather than destruction. He shared his knowledge of Ziran strategies, helping humans anticipate attacks without resorting to unnecessary violence. His actions inspired confidence and hope, proving that even a child raised for war could embrace a different way of life. The humans began to flourish. Crops grew in the fertile valleys, homes were repaired, and laughter returned to the streets. Kale felt a deep sense of belonging and pride. For the first time, he understood that strength was not measured by fear, violence, or obedience, but by courage, kindness, and the willingness to protect life even in the face of danger. One day, a group of Ziran adults arrived at the settlement, seeking to challenge Queen Alara's leadership and test Kale's loyalty. Kale stepped forward, standing beside Alara without fear. "I am not your enemy," he said firmly. "I will not fight you unnecessarily, but I will not return to a life of cruelty. You must respect the choice I have made." The Zirans hesitated, seeing the change in Kale. He was no longer a child of war, a follower of orders. He was a protector, a student of humanity, and an example of courage and gentleness combined. Slowly, they withdrew, realizing that his path was now guided by values they did not understand. That evening, Kale walked with Alara through the garden. The settlement was quiet, the air filled with the soft hum of life returning to the planet. "Do you ever worry that your gentleness will be seen as weakness?" Kale asked. Alara shook her head. "Never. True strength is not in dominance or fear. It is in choices, in protecting what matters, and in guiding others with wisdom and care. Gentleness is the heart of that strength. It is what inspires courage in others." Kale nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He had lived in a world of war and obedience, yet he had chosen a different path. He had learned that courage could take many forms, that strength could be gentle, and that life was worth protecting, not just for survival, but for hope, growth, and the future. As the twin suns set over Urindor, Kale looked around at the settlement. Humans, children, and even some Ziran allies worked together to build a new life. He felt a deep sense of belonging, of purpose, and of pride. The lessons of humanity were no longer just words. They were lived, experienced, and shared. Kale realized that he had become part of something larger than himself. He had chosen to follow courage guided by care, to embrace strength through gentleness, and to protect life in a way he had never imagined possible. He understood now that Queen Alara had been right. Gentleness was not weakness. It was a force that could change even the hardest hearts, inspire hope, and build a future worth fighting for. And as Kale stood beside Queen Alara, watching the settlement thrive under the protection of human courage and wisdom, he knew that he had found his place. Not as a soldier trained for destruction, but as a protector, a builder, and a living example of what humans could inspire in others, even in a child born into war. The war-torn planet of Urindor was healing, not through fear or dominance, but through courage, care, and gentleness. And Kale, once a child of war, had become a testament to the power of choice, humanity, and the extraordinary strength that comes from being gentle.